Throughout the ages, the most profound spiritual teachers have observed that our thoughts are not merely abstract concepts, they are energetic forces that shape our reality. When we dwell in negative thought patterns, we create what the renowned spiritual researcher Edgar once described as thought forms that can attract similar energetic entities. Imagine your mind as a broadcasting station. Every complaint, every moment of self-pity, every thought of "I can't" or "life is against me" doesn't simply disappear into the ether. These thoughts create a dark cloud around your energy field, acting like a beacon to disembodied consciousnesses that resonate with that same frequency. These obsessive spirits, or lower vibrational entities as they're sometimes called, are drawn to this negative energy like moths to a flame. They aren't necessarily malevolent in the traditional sense. Rather, they're often confused souls who remain earthbound, attached to similar thought patterns they experienced during physical life. When you consistently engage in patterns of victimhood, saying things like, "Why does this always happen to me?" or "Nothing ever works out for me," you're unknowingly establishing energetic contracts. These contracts manifest as ethereal threads connecting your aura to these entities, allowing them to draw sustenance from your life force while reinforcing these destructive thought patterns. The most dangerous aspect of this symbiotic relationship is its subtlety. You might experience these borrowed thoughts as your own, never questioning their origin. "I'm worthless" might feel like your authentic voice, when in reality, it's an external influence perpetuating itself through your consciousness. Breaking free from this first spiritual attachment requires vigilant awareness. Begin by observing your thoughts without judgment. When negative patterns emerge, ask yourself, is this truly my highest wisdom speaking, or am I entertaining lower vibrations? This simple act of questioning creates space between yourself and the thought, weakening the attachment. The ancient practice of affirmation serves as a powerful countermeasure. When negative thoughts arise, immediately replace them with statements of truth. "I am whole. I am protected by divine light. I choose peace." Speak these words with conviction, feeling their resonance throughout your being. Visualization is equally potent. Imagine a brilliant white or golden light descending from above, flowing through your crown chakra and illuminating every cell of your body. See this light dissolving the dark cloud around your head, severing those ethereal connections to lower entities. As you practice this daily, you'll notice the intrusive thoughts diminishing in both frequency and intensity. Remember that what we resist often persists. The goal isn't to fight against negative thoughts, but to transform them through the alchemical power of awareness and love. Even these attached entities deserve compassion. They too are seeking light, albeit through misguided means. The second gateway through which obsessive entities establish bonds with our energy field is perhaps the most volatile: our uncontrolled emotional outbursts and habitual judgments of others. These emotional explosions create ruptures in our protective auric field, opening doorways that would otherwise remain sealed. When you surrender to rage, cursing at the driver who cut you off, screaming at a loved one, or even silently seething with hatred toward a coworker, you're not merely experiencing an emotion, you're generating a powerful energetic discharge. This manifests as fiery projections emanating from your throat and solar plexus chakras, creating disturbances in the subtle realms that are immediately detected by wandering entities. These beings, many of whom departed the physical plane while still entangled in their own anger or resentment, are magnetically drawn to these emotional eruptions. They recognize the familiar vibration and attach themselves to these energy centers, which appear to them as bright, volatile flames in your aura. The ancient mystery schools taught that judgment of others creates one of the strongest bonds with obsessive spirits. When you pronounce someone as evil, worthless, or beyond redemption, you're not only damaging your own spiritual immunity, but creating a resonance field that attracts entities who thrive on division and separation consciousness. What makes this attachment mechanism particularly insidious is the feeding cycle it establishes. Once an entity has formed a connection through your anger or judgment, it will subtly influence your perceptions to find more reasons for outrage. A minor slight becomes a major offense. A simple disagreement transforms into evidence of another's moral failure. You may find yourself increasingly irritable, argumentative, or prone to explosive reactions that seem disproportionate to the triggering events. The physical symptoms of this attachment often manifest as chronic tension in the jaw, recurring throat infections, persistent digestive issues, or unexplained sensations of heat in the chest. These are energetic signposts indicating that your emotional centers have become hosting grounds for these disruptive influences. Breaking these fiery bonds requires a multi-layered approach. First, cultivate the practice of the sacred pause, the conscious choice to create space between stimulus and response. When you feel anger rising, breathe deeply and say internally, "I choose peace instead of this." This simple act disrupts the automatic circuit that entities exploit. Water serves as a powerful cleansing agent for these fiery attachments. Daily showers visualized as spiritual purification can help dissolve these connections. As the water flows over your body, imagine it washing away not just physical impurities, but the fiery cords connected to your throat and solar plexus. Sea salt baths enhance this practice, as salt has been recognized across traditions for its ability to absorb negative energies. Sound healing directly addresses attachments to the throat chakra. Chanting, toning, or even humming at different frequencies can help restore harmony to this energy center. The ancient Sanskrit syllable, ram, resonates with the solar plexus, while ham balances the throat chakra. Intoning these sounds for several minutes creates vibrations that are uncomfortable for attached entities. Perhaps the most transformative practice is cultivating genuine compassion, not just for others, but for yourself when you fail to meet your own spiritual ideals. When you judge yourself harshly for expressing anger, you paradoxically strengthen the very attachment you're trying to dissolve. Instead, acknowledge your humanity with gentleness, understanding that emotional mastery is a journey, not a destination. Remember that these obsessive spirits are themselves caught in cycles of suffering. When you respond to provocation with equanimity rather than reaction, you not only protect yourself, but offer healing to these entities by demonstrating a higher way of being. In this light, each moment of emotional challenge becomes an opportunity for mutual liberation. The third pathway through which obsessive spirits establish their most tenacious bonds operates through our physical indulgences and compulsive behaviors. This mechanism of attachment is particularly powerful because it bridges both the material and spiritual dimensions of our existence. When we regularly engage in excessive consumption, whether through alcohol, recreational drugs, compulsive sexual activity, or binge eating, we temporarily alter our vibrational frequency and create what spiritual adepts call energetic apertures in our protective field. These openings appear as vulnerable points in our aura through which disembodied consciousnesses can establish connections. Consider the subtle anatomy of addiction from an energetic perspective. Each substance or compulsive behavior creates a specific vibration that resonates with certain types of entities. Alcohol, for instance, tends to attract spirits who departed while still attached to this substance, creating ethereal tentacles that extend from the bottle or glass directly into the lower three chakras of the consumer. These energetic appendages function as siphons, drawing life force while simultaneously feeding the craving for more of the substance. What modern psychology identifies as addiction often has a spiritual dimension rarely acknowledged in clinical settings. The inexplicable urgency to engage in self-destructive behavior, despite clear negative consequences, sometimes indicates more than just biochemical dependency or psychological compulsion. It may signal the presence of attached entities who require the energetic discharge of these activities for their own sustenance. The spiritual records observed by the intuitive healer Edgar suggest that many individuals struggling with addiction are actually dealing with multiple layers of influence, their own unresolved trauma, biochemical dependencies, and the presence of attached entities who amplify cravings to ensure their energetic feeding continues. Particularly concerning is how these attachments create distortions in perception. Under their influence, the genuine pleasure derived from a substance or behavior becomes magnified, while awareness of harmful consequences becomes diminished. This explains the common experience of addicts who describe feeling possessed by their cravings or acting against their own conscious intentions. The intimate connection between sexuality and spirituality makes sexual excess a particularly powerful bonding mechanism for obsessive spirits. Tantra and other esoteric traditions have long recognized that sexual energy, when mindfully channeled, can elevate consciousness. However, when expressed compulsively or without reverence, this same force can create attachments that drain vitality and distort healthy sexual expression. Breaking these tentacular bonds requires addressing both the physical and spiritual dimensions simultaneously. While conventional approaches like rehabilitation and therapy are vital, they address only part of the equation. Complete liberation requires specific energetic interventions. The practice of energetic cord cutting serves as a direct counter to these attachments. Visualize a divine flame of transmutation, violet or blue in color, and see it burning away the tentacles connected to your lower chakras. State firmly, "I reclaim my power and dissolve all connections that do not serve my highest good." Nay, this declaration, spoken with conviction, activates your sovereign right to energetic autonomy. Fasting has been employed across spiritual traditions as a powerful method for breaking entity attachments formed through excess. Even brief periods of abstinence from the substance or behavior, approached as a spiritual practice rather than mere deprivation, can weaken these connections significantly. During these fasts, increase your intake of pure water, which helps flush both physical toxins and subtle energetic residue. Plant medicines used in traditional healing, such as sage, cedar, palo santo, and copal, produce smoke that creates an environment inhospitable to lower vibrational entities. Regular smudging of your living space, particularly areas where you've engaged in excessive behaviors, helps dissolve the energetic residue that sustains these attachments. Most importantly, recognize that judgment and shame only strengthen these bonds. When you condemn yourself for succumbing to excess, you generate the very negative emotions that feed obsessive spirits. Instead, approach your healing with compassion, understanding that liberation is a process of gradual reclamation rather than overnight transformation. The final pathways through which obsessive spirits establish their most subtle yet profound bonds involve our relationship with external influences, unconscious agreements, attachment to past wounds, denial of our spiritual nature, and the energetic quality of our environments. These mechanisms represent the most sophisticated strategies employed by lower entities to maintain their connections to our life force. When we regularly consume media filled with violence, degradation, or exploitative content, we're not merely being entertained, we're bathing our consciousness in specific frequencies that darken our perceptual field. The eyes, as ancient traditions have recognized, are gateways to the soul. Through them, we absorb energetic imprints that can remain embedded in our auric field, attracting entities that resonate with these vibrations. Notice how your energy shifts after watching disturbing news or explicit content. The heaviness you feel is not merely psychological, but represents actual changes in your subtle anatomy. Perhaps most concerning are the unconscious pacts we make through careless declarations. When in moments of despair you exclaim, "I would give anything to make this pain stop," or "I'd sell my soul for financial security." These are not mere figures of speech in the subtle realms. Such statements are perceived as invitations by entities seeking energetic sustenance. The power of the spoken word creates actual contracts on the ethereal plane, forming binding agreements that require specific spiritual technologies to dissolve. The obsessive rumination on past trauma creates what the wisdom traditions call karmic knots, energetic entanglements that appear as dark cords connecting us to temporal events we've long departed physically, but remain tethered to energetically. Entities that specialize in feeding from grief, resentment, and regret will attach themselves to these cords, whispering interpretations that keep these wounds perpetually fresh, ensuring their feeding ground remains vital and active. When we deny or reject our spiritual nature, our inherent connection to divine consciousness, we create a vacuum in our energy field. This void appears as fragmentation in the auric field, areas of diminished light that entities recognize as points of vulnerability. The philosophical stance of nihilism, or rigid materialism, doesn't merely represent an intellectual position, it manifests as actual structural weaknesses in our subtle anatomy that can be exploited by discarnate intelligences. The spaces we inhabit carry their own energetic signatures. Sleeping in locations with histories of suffering, violence, or spiritual disturbance exposes us to residual energies that can facilitate attachments during our most vulnerable state, sleep, when our conscious defenses are naturally lowered. Similarly, neglecting regular energetic cleansing of our homes allows stagnant energy to accumulate, creating an environment hospitable to lower vibrational beings. Liberation from these more sophisticated attachments requires equally sophisticated spiritual technologies. The ancient practice of declaration revocation allows you to nullify unconscious agreements. State firmly, "I revoke any and all agreements, contracts, or permissions granted knowingly or unknowingly that do not serve my highest evolution." These agreements are now null and void across all dimensions of time and space. Feel the power of this declaration resonating through your entire being. For healing attachments to past trauma, the practice of timeline healing serves as a direct intervention. In meditation, visualize yourself traveling back to the traumatic event, surrounded by protective divine light. Observe the energetic cords connecting your current self to that moment, and with deep compassion, use divine light to sever these connections, releasing both yourself and any entities attached to these wounds. To address the fragmentation caused by spiritual disconnection, the practice of soul retrieval becomes essential. Visualize gathering all dispersed aspects of your consciousness, calling them back from wherever they've been scattered. See these fragments returning, reintegrating with your central light, making your aura whole and impenetrable to external influences. For environmental attachments, the traditional practice of space clearing becomes indispensable. Beyond physical cleaning, this involves using sound, bells, drums, or singing bowls, protective substances, salt, holy water, and declarations of intent to transform the vibrational quality of your space. State clearly, "This space is consecrated to light. Only beings of love and service may enter here." The ultimate protection against all forms of spiritual attachment lies in the daily cultivation of your inner light through meditation, prayer, or contemplative practice. When you regularly connect with your divine essence, you naturally increase your vibrational frequency beyond the range that obsessive spirits can tolerate. In this elevated state, you become not only impervious to attachment, but a beacon that helps guide these lost entities toward their own liberation. Remember that spiritual sovereignty is your birthright. You were never meant to share your sacred vessel with any consciousness other than your own divine spark. By implementing these practices with consistency and faith, you reclaim your energetic integrity and fulfill your true purpose, to be a clear channel through which universal love can flow unimpeded into this world that so desperately needs it. Did this information resonate with your experiences or spiritual journey? This is just the beginning of the profound wisdom available to those who seek true spiritual liberation. Subscribe to our channel now to receive weekly guidance on protecting your energetic field and elevating your consciousness. Each video builds upon these foundational principles, offering practical techniques that you can implement immediately. Share your own experiences or questions in the comments below. Your testimony may be exactly what another seeker needs to hear on their path to freedom. Remember, in creating this community of conscious individuals, we strengthen the collective field of protection around us all. Click the notification bell to ensure you never miss our upcoming revelation on ancient protection rituals that have been hidden from the public for centuries. Your spiritual sovereignty awaits. Take the first step by joining our community today.